live online. Meeting is being live streamed. We'll pull up the Gemara here on the screen. If you have an art scroll,
It's actually quite a key rabbi.
Gemara, you should be on 20a-3.
You're right here. Thank you.
20a.
Wow.
So the Gemara over here will now continue with the discussion of the Mishnah. The Mishnah started saying many mitzvahs which have to be done only by day. The first mitzvah we of course mentioned was a mitzvah that has to do with our Mesechta, which is the mitzvah of Megillah. Megillah has to be done only by day. All of the service in the Beis Hamikdash, lighting the menorah, bringing korbanos, everything had to be done by day. Going to the mikvah, in order to become pure, tahar, can only be done by day with one exception. The exception is a nida. A nida is the only one who goes to the mikvah at night. Everyone else, to become pure, you go to the mikvah by day.
Because it's for the nida, it's like you're going to do a mitzvah, it's you're not delaying the mitzvah.
Right, and there's more to that also.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of things. Shaking lulav and esrog is only by day. Offering the Sfiras HaOmer could all be done by day. Davening Musaf is only by day. Shaking lulav and esrog, blowing shofar is all by day. Now, daytime, we have been discussing what's called the Zmanim, the Jewish times for the calendar. And the Zmanim for Pittsburgh. Let's say, for example, today is you have what's called Alois HaShachar Dan, that's 5:48 a.m. That's when it starts to get light. And then you have sunrise, 7:19 a.m. That's when the sun goes up. It could be light before for a long time already, but the sun only goes up at 7:19 a.m. That's when you see the sun rising. Correct.
We first have the rays of the sun and then you have the sun.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So earliest talis and tefillin is somewhere in the middle of that time when you could recognize colors just by sunlight, and therefore you could recognize the blue of the tzitzis. A example over here is, you see here's nighttime, and here is where it's sunset, and here is sunrise. The sun has now risen in the sky. You can see the sun far off on the horizon, where the mouse is over here. And this time period is called Alois HaShachar, till Netzach Hama. The morning star, when the dawn starts to break. This is sunset. You have a similar thing. From the Torah, daytime is from sunrise till sunset. That is when daytime is. However, Chachamim, the sages, added on that part of the daytime is also from when the sun when it starts to get light. It's called Alois HaShachar. And it's not completely night yet. You can't daven Ma'ariv or say Shema until after Tzei Sakachavim, until it's completely dark. And the sign for that is 3 stars have come out. Now, if you're in some elevations or if you're in a flat area, we could see very far. Even after 3 stars come out, you could see the sun off in the distance. Talking about a place like Yerushalayim, a regular place.
Well, if you're at the equator, so the difference between the star's coming out, sunset is sort of like a blink of the eye.
Right. So the Mishnah, back to our Mishnah on our daf, our Mishnah listed several things which can only happen by day. The Mishnah stated you can only read Karnas and Megillah, you can read the Megillah by day. You could only give a bris milah during the daytime. We mentioned the miraculous story of Rabbi Shane, how he had to give a bris in Queens during the day. He was by the Rebbe Sicha after Mincha. The Rebbe gave a bracha to him and to the father of the baby boy to make the bris on time. And so he stayed for the Rebbe Sicha, and there was about 15 minutes left to Shkia, and he got into his car. He was stuck in traffic the entire time to Queens, and he still managed to make the bris before Shkia. Doesn't know how that happened. A bris milah takes place by day, and the next case of the Mishnah is a very interesting case. It's called Shemeres Yoim Keneged Yoim. Watching one day, one clean day, instead of one day with a seeing blood. This doesn't really apply nowadays in our current format of after we have the Chumrah of Reb Zera, how we keep the days of Nida and the mikveh calendar.
But we also don't know. And that way it's actually
Correct. What is Nida? What is Meziva? Correct. We're not sure which one is which.
as far as actually the exact, distinguishments as far as actually read. You're expert in the
Right. So several different factors. Govi's bringing up some of them. So this is not really so applicable today, but it's very applicable from biblical law, from the Torah. It's called Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom. We do Nida, we need 7 clean days. But from the Torah, there are situations where a woman will only have to keep 1 clean day before going to the mikveh. When a woman keeps 7 clean days before going to the mikveh, they also go to the mikveh by daytime. However, for a nida, which is a unique situation, they go to the mikveh by night. The situation, which is called Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom, where a woman has to saw blood for 1 day in certain days, and then she must go to the mikveh. She must keep 1 clean day and then go to mikveh afterwards. So what's unique over here is that she goes to the mikveh the day after. Although all she has to keep is 1 clean day, so let her be like a nida. Let her go to the mikveh at night. Still, she only goes to the mikveh by day. I opened up here the link at the very end. Explains a little bit over here what is a zav and a zava and a shemeres yom keneged yom. A zav is a man who emits a zav emission 3 times in a row. It's a very unique type of emission, not a regular seminal emission. It's a little bit different. And we're not familiar with it, so we don't really have this impurity of zav today. But when they go to mikveh, they must go only by day, and they actually have to go in a stream. They can't go in a mikveh. It's the only type of tumah, impurity has to go in a living stream of water, a real live stream. They can't go into regular mikveh.
I was wondering, when women go to the women's mikveh, would they have like more chumras for that mikveh actually than the mikveh that us men go to?
I wouldn't say they have more chumras. Just that we men never do mikveh the way we're supposed to do mikveh. That's what I'm saying. They have many chumras, the chafifa, they have to make sure they don't have a chatzitza, anything obstructing from the water. If we would have to go to mikveh to go onto the Hatzvi-Bais, to go onto the Temple Mount, we would have to do the same type of checks that the women do, and the same type of preparations the women do before going to mikveh. We would have to do the same. But we don't go to the Temple Mount. We don't eat sanctified, purified, truma and different things like that, and bikurim. Therefore, men don't have to do any of the chafifa. So yes, we do have to do the same, but we don't have any obligatory mikveh, unless you're one of those who go up to the Temple Mount to daven and then ask your local rabbi who tells you what to do. So Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom is a woman who has to keep only 1 clean day, not 7 clean days, and then she goes to the mikveh after she keeps a clean day. However, unlike a nida who goes to the mikveh the night after, she goes to the mikveh the day after. And that's going to be the discussion of our Gemara. Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom. So let's bear in mind the 3 things that we mentioned. There's a zav, a zava, and a shemeres yom keneged yom. A zav is a man who had 3 emissions, who goes to he needs 7 clean days and goes to the mikveh on the 7th day or the 8th day. We'll discuss that. There's a zava, a woman who had 3 unclean days in a row, and today we do suffix zava, who needs 7 clean days, and then she goes to the mikveh during the day. Then there is a nida, which goes to the mikveh at night. Nida is usually 1 or 2 days, not 7 days, and they go to the mikveh at night. not the need of contemporary times, the need of the times of the Torah. So let's go into the Gemara. If you have your article, it's 20a-2. It's about 10 lines on the bottom of 20a, Chaf Amud Aleph. The goal is to get to the next Mishnah on the next page and to learn a little bit about the history and security of the city of Yerushalayim. That's brought down in our Gemara. So says the Gemara, a woman who observes only one clean day can only go to mikvah during the daytime after the sun rises. And once again, after sunrise means go to mikvah after 7:19 a.m. We said a bris should only be done after 7:19 a.m. Many other things should preferably only be done after 7:19 a.m. The only thing that you could do before without a problem is saying Shema. Shema you can say from after 6:26 a.m. without a problem. Davening Shemona Esrei should be done after 7:19 a.m. If it's all of these, if they're done before, if they're done after Alois HaShachar, you're fine. You fulfilled your obligation. But they all should be done after 7:19 a.m. So Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom, a woman who keeps one clean day, she goes to mikvah after sunrise, after 7:19 a.m. Ask the Gemara, Pshita. This should be obvious. We're telling you, we mentioned everyone who goes to mikvah goes by day. And a woman who keeps one clean day also goes by day. Why is she any different than everyone else who goes to the mikvah? Let her also go to the mikvah only by day. Only if the Torah tells us by Nida we go by night, we understand to go by night. But otherwise, everyone who goes to mikvah should go during the daytime. What is the difference between a woman who goes to mikvah after one clean day than any other person who goes to mikvah who has to go to the mikvah during the daytime? And for the Gemara, Itzrich means we need the Mishnah to single out this case, because I would think that this woman who goes to mikvah after one clean day might be able to go by night. Why? So I might think to myself to say that a woman who goes to the mikvah after one clean day should be identical to a zav who saw on the first day. So we'll go back to our candy list over here. A zav, a man who emits a zav once or twice, or 2 or 3 times consecutively. If it's only once, then they only have to keep one clean day. They're not impure for 7 days.
These are 2 or 3 times on different days.
Right, different days, correct. Right, as Rabbi Karb is pointing out, it's to be different days, not on the same day. And sometimes it could be one time, and it's counted as 2 days if it's done right by the cutoff point. By Shkia, and it started before Shkia, ended off after, it could even be counted as 2 days. But if it was many times in one day, then it's only considered to be once. Right. A woman is the same thing. All right. Thank you for pointing that out. That a woman only, it goes by the days to count to make her a zava, but that's not as right.
I'm actually wondering about something. So a woman, we're having actually her saying, well, perhaps she's a zava, so she goes to mikvah. I'm talking actually with men, we're not worried and say, well, just in case, let's go to mikvah.
For a zav? Okay, so if you look over here on the screen, I'm going to highlight what a zav looks like.
Okay.
Zav is a clear discharge with appearance of a white or sterile or spoiled egg, in contrast with regular whatever, which has consistency of fresh egg white. A zav can be a pus-like discharge resembling liquid from barley dough or soft barley batter.
So in other words,
a man who emits a zav discharge, if he did any of these things, is not a zav. If he eats too much, he drinks too much, he jumps, he's sick, any of those things, it's not counted. Any medication, obviously.
So maybe another section for men, maybe it's just too, vague, and we have to constantly be going over to mikveh.
No, more than that. There's no need for us to go to mikveh today. For what? There's no kachim today. The only ones who have to keep any semblance of tahara are women, right? I'm saying obviously Kohanim don't go into cemeteries, touch their bodies, but that's a chumrah. Not because they're not actually becoming pure of anything.
It's already impure.
They're already impure, and especially if they touched a relative, right?
Mhm.
They're definitely impure. They never became pure, but they still cannot go to a cemetery. The only semblance, deraisa, biblical purity and impurity we have today is a nida, a woman.
Well, there's still others, a Kohen actually who comes in contact with the dead, and he doesn't become more tumadik? Or
No,
he's just a tumadik?
it's come as he was, but he every time he touches a dead, he's over a lot. He transgresses another law, even though he's already impure. So the Gemara says you might think to say that a woman who keeps one clean day should be like the first sighting of a zav. A zav who only has one discharge is like a person who has a seminal discharge, and a man who has a seminal discharge is tamei. They're impure. They're tamei. They're impure, right? And Ezra, we're actually going to mention Ezra later in the Gemara. Ezra made a decree that any man who has any type of seminal discharge cannot daven, cannot put on tefillin, and they took away that decree. But that's one of the reasons why Chassidim today still go to the mikvah, because although the decree was batal, was nullified, we still keep it to go to the mikvah before davening.
So when you said is the decree they couldn't daven until they went to the mikveh, or
Yeah, that was the decree they couldn't daven until they go to the mikvah. But the Torah says that someone is about carry a man who had a seminal discharge, even if they had relations, they're tamei for one day, they're impure, and they can't bring a carbon. Let's say they can't bring a carbon pesach that day, can't eat the carbon pesach that night. Many things they can't do. They're tamei, they're impure.
I mean, they're obligated to do so, therefore it's a prerequisite they have to go to the mikvah.
Correct. But let's say the one who's bringing the carbon pesach to the Beis HaMikdash cannot have done any relations the night before because he will be a balkari, right?
Oh.
You're impure for one day.
do they talk about a man that may have a discharge, venereal discharge? Is that different?
Yeah, that's a little different.
Or did it ever cover it?
In the Torah, yeah, but I don't think necessarily that he becomes tamei. He doesn't become impure from that. It doesn't make him. It's all spiritual cleanliness and uncleanliness. It's not a physical type of cleanliness. Ria Rishleina shel zav iska shel bakari. Ichsiv zoi satayra sazav asher teitzi menu shichva zera tamava. It says this is Parshas Metzora or Parshas Tazria. This is the law of one who is a zav. A zav is 3 discharges. Or someone who had 1 discharge. Coming to teach you that if a zav, someone who had one of these type of discharges, right, spoiled egg or barley or one of those discharges, only from the organ where he goes to the bathroom, right, where someone has one of those discharges. For one day, he has the same law as a balkari who is impure for one day and has to go to the mikvah. Why? Because the fact that they're neighbors in the Torah, neighbors are not by accident, right? It's there for a reason. Hashem put it there for a reason, and therefore He says, back to here. This is the Torah of the zav and the one who has shichva zara seminal emission, teaching you that both have the same law, and they both are impure for just one day. So you might think to say that since a zav, one with 3 zav discharges, and one who has 1 seminal discharge, have the same law, so you might think to say that just like one who has a seminal discharge goes to the mikveh by day, so too a zav should go to mikveh by day on the same day. We're talking about the day of. Right, one who has a seminal discharge, let's say by night, goes to mikveh in the morning, and then by night they're already pure. A zav, even if he saw discharge by night, he can't go to mikveh in the morning. He has to go to the mikveh the day after, and then is pure the next night. So you might think to say that you can go to the mikveh day of, as long as after you went to mikveh, you have no more discharges. You might think to say that just like a balkari, a seminal discharge goes to the mikveh day of, as long as there are no more seminal discharges after. So you might think to say that a zav should be the same thing and should go to mikvah the day he has his discharge. So So you, however, you cannot go to mikvah. A zav, one with 3 discharges, cannot go to mikvah day of, because it is written regarding a zava, a woman's zav. So we're going from a male zav to a woman's zav, but they're very similar in many regards. By a woman's zav, it says she must count her clean days. It should be like the days of menstruation, meaning that she must wait till the day is over to go to the mikvah. Just like by Anida, she doesn't go to mikvah day of. She goes to mikvah night after. So a zava, a woman who has 3 blood discharges 3 days, one after the next, doesn't go to mikvah day of, has to go to mikvah after. But unlike a nida, which goes to the mikvah the night after, they go to the mikvah the day after. And a zav is similar to a zava, and is just like a zava goes to mikvah the day after, a zav goes to mikvah the day after. So unlike a balkari, a man with a seminal discharge, who can go to the mikvah the day of, the zav goes to mikvah the day after. But you might think, let them go to the mikvah the night after, just like a woman who's a nida. So it comes to teach you, that's why our Mishnah has to teach you that a woman who's teaching keeping 1 clean day cannot go to the mikvah the day after, and rather has to wait till the next day. So let's read it inside. I know it's a little bit nuanced. We're talking about 3 different tumas going on simultaneously. There's only one more line of this Gemara. Even the Mishnah teaches us, since she's required to count a day, Sfira b'yamamahi, counting must be performed by day. A zava, a woman who has to keep 7 clean days, must count 7 clean days. As the Torah says, she must count, right? Shivas yamim tisperla. She must count 7 days of cleanliness, of not seeing any blood. A woman who has saw blood for 3 days in a row. It says she must keep 7 clean days, and she must count 7 clean days. From there, we actually see interesting halacha that it's a mitzvah for the woman to verbally count and say, today is my first of the Shiva Nikim of the 7 clean days. Today is my second of the Shiva Nikim. It's a mitzvah for her to verbally count. She's like adding extra, how do you say, strength or fire to the mitzvah by actually counting verbally each day what it is. Now, if they didn't do it, they're fine. They didn't count it verbally, but it's an extra mitzvah for the woman to verbally count how many clean days there are. But they must count by day.
It's not by action, but
Correct.
that's true.
Samake, right. So since she must count herself 7 clean days, and Torah says days, so a woman must not count 1 clean day, also has to count the day. And therefore, the entire day must be clean. And she will not fulfill her obligation by counting part of the night after a discharge. She must wait till the next day before she counts, and only then could she go to the mikvah. So this is a point that the Mishnah is teaching, that she's not able to count the night as part of a clean day. However, over here, she must go to the mikvah the day after. But you might think to say to yourself, let her go to mikvah a day early. I'm the teacher, let her go to mikvah the day after. Right? Just like a balkari, a man who has a seminal discharge can go to mikvah the day of and be pure by night. You might think this woman, Ishmael Shem Keneged Yoin, could go to mikvah the day of and then be pure by night. Coming to teach you, she must go to mikvah the day after. But she cannot be like a nida who goes to mikvah and rather, she must go to mikvah by day, the day after. Fine. So that concludes this Gemara. We'll do the next Gemara now. If any questions, and it's a little bit nuanced, but the point is that the Mishnah had to tell us about it. Although the Mishnah told us that everyone who goes to mikvah goes by day, the Mishnah had to tell us specifically the case of a woman who keeps 1 clean day, that they can go the day after, that they can go by day, because you might think to say that they could go either a day early or go by night.
So we're not contradicting the Mishnah. We're explaining to why the Mishnah
Had to had to list one case after listing the whole entire rule. Now, if somebody did any of these mitzvahs after Alois HaShachar, so Dovi, what time is Alois HaShachar this today in Pittsburgh?
I would say 5:48 because it says over there.
We're going to 5:48 a.m. So let's say is a bris,
Mhm,
and it's very early in the morning,
mhm,
and they make the bris at 6:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning.
mhm,
Is a bris valid, or do they have to do the bris again? Like if someone gives a bris by night,
mhm.
they have to do it again, right?
Well,
Yeah.
They have to give a prick. Yeah, we learned that halacha previously.
I said, that's not considered a suffix. You for sure have to wait for sunrise then, right?
So that's exactly what our Gemara is saying. Let's read what the Gemara says.
Okay.
If any of them were done after dawn,
Mhm.
it's kosher. It's okay.
Ah,
Even though you're supposed to wait till sunrise,
uh-huh.
till what the time today is. Sorry. Let me X out of that. You're supposed to wait till 7:19 a.m. But if you did it early, it's kosher. It's okay.
Including the bris?
Including the bris, everything the Mishnah mentioned.
Ah.
Going to the mikvah, you're supposed to do after 7:19 a.m.
Mhm.
I don't know. You're probably there after 7:19 a.m. I'm there every day before 7:19 a.m.
Today, I mean, but many days I go over to the mikvah before
Sunrise.
no, before she's davening.
Right.
It's
very good.
no exception.
It says in a certain form of Kabbalah, if you go to mikvah,
Mhm.
on the day you go to mikvah, it's considered as if you fasted that day.
Oh, wow.
Because it's a very holy thing.
I suspect you'll be losing some weight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you gain weight from the Heshmei Rabbas. So if any of them were done after daybreak, it is valid. So one read the Megillah after daybreak. Right, let's say they have to go to work. They have to be at work 8 o'clock in the morning, drive 20 minutes to work on Purim. So they have to hear the Megillah early. If they heard it after daybreak, it's kosher.
I think you gain weight from eating more calories than you eat.
We're not doing enough exercise, you gain weight. Right? Reading Hallel is supposed to be done after daybreak. Blowing shofar should be done after daybreak. All these things that we said after sunrise. Shaking the lulav, davening musaf. So all these things that we mentioned are technically allowed from daybreak, even though it should be done after sunrise. How do you know that it's kosher? How do you know that it's okay from then? There's other situations where you don't separate, and you say that things are only kosher after actual sunrise. Or certain things are only good after sunrise, and not harchakas and things. Rabbinical things are only done from sunrise and not from Alois HaShachar. Generally, depending what it is.
There's like a woman actually checking her first.
Correct. That should be done after Netzach Hama.
And that's probably because, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you need to see clearly, right?
That's one reason. Another thing is, this is deraisa, this is biblical daytime. And it's not biblical daytime before. We know it's biblically daytime sometime before. Sometime between 5:48 and 7:19, it's the cutoff point where it becomes day. But we're not aware of that exact cutoff point. Only Hashem is. So therefore, we add on all the stringencies from both ends, of nighttime, of daytime. You shouldn't daven then, but you shouldn't daven Ma'ariv then. But b'diavad, if you didn't daven Ma'ariv, you could do it till sunrise. Or if you want to daven Shachar early, you could do it after Alois, after daybreak. So we add on all the stringencies and we apply the leniencies in extenuating circumstances during that time.
It's like if you're not going to be able to daven after sunrise, so then, okay, here it comes dawn.
Many rabbinical decrees only take place after tzeis, after nightfall, 3 stars. For example, Shia Vatmana, putting up food on a blech, right, for Shabbos, is only prohibited, or wrapping up in towels and that type of stuff, is only prohibited after nightfall, tzeis HaKachavim. During the time of Ben Hashmashos, between these 2 times, you're allowed to do it.
It's probably actually a case of only a rabbinical prohibition.
Right, so it's a rabbinical prohibition. They only applied it from nightfall. Right, Fast days are different. Fast days we do from alois, from daybreak. The fasts are different because we're more strict when it comes to fasting. So if all of them were done early, it's good. How do you know that? Says the Gemara. Amar Rava says, the Amar Kra, because we have a verse. The 5th pasuk in the Torah. Can you imagine? And it has, I think, the 25th word in the Torah in this pasuk. Oh no, that's pasuk Gimel. You know the 25th word in the Torah? Or light. And Hanukkah is on the 25th day of the month.
That is interesting.
But pasuk Hey, it says, Vayikra Elokim laor yom. On the first day of creation, God created light. And he called the light day. And to darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, and it was one day. Or means light. It didn't say sun. Hashem called the sunrise day. Right? The 4th day of creation says the sun will be in charge by day. Right? The great luminary, the sun, to rule the day. It doesn't say that the sun has to be up in the sky during the day. Just has to be light. What makes something day? La'ar. If it's light, it's called day. So therefore, once it starts getting light in the morning, it's 5:48 a.m. It's already good enough to be considered daytime. B'di'evet, at least after the fact, and therefore any of the mitzvahs which are supposed to be done after sunrise are kosher if they're done before that time. Because it says, and Hashem called the day the light day. For when it's becoming more bright, it's called day. And then it says, Gemara asks the question, if so, let me look at the next word in the next word in the words in the verse. It says, and Hashem called, verse 5, the light day, and he called the darkness night. Do we say the same thing then? Let us say the same thing. Just like you say, that daytime. As long as it's light, it could be considered daytime. Let's say as long as it's getting dark, it could be considered nighttime. However, nighttime is not validly nighttime until 3 stars come out. So let me pull up our handy dandy graph over here again. So we have over here the morning, where it's daybreak, Alyssa Shachar. The sun has not come up yet. And from this time, we said it could be considered to be daytime, where the sun is looking like this in the morning. At this time, you bring the love to have vacation in this spot. Looks good. Here, the sun already went down, but it's not dark yet, but it's getting darker. Let us say that this is considered to be night, for the same way the Torah calls light day, darkness when it's getting dark should be called night. How come nighttime owns only from the time 3 stars come out? Say Sakachavim, 3 stars come out. Rather, we learned that until it becomes dark, 3 stars come out, it is not yet properly dark. So rather, the Gemara answers, I have a different source. Don't say that Aloisa Shachar, daybreak, when it starts getting light, 5:48 a.m., is considered to be daytime, based on this pasuk, on the verse, right in the beginning of the Torah, that the Hashem called the light day, because you have a question. Hashem called the night the dark night, and if it's dark, it's not legally night till the stars come out. So rather, the Gemara will bring a different source. Reb Zera says from here, and this is where we're talking about the security of the holy city of Yerushalayim. Mihacha from here. So let me bring a little bit of the background. Where is it? Here it is. 18 years. Remember we spoke about earlier in the Megillah. There was a king called Koresh, and he told the Jews, go ahead and rebuild the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. And the Jews went ahead and rebuilt it. And there were two people, Sanballat and Samartan. Sanballat, the Shemroni, and Tuvia, the Ammoni. And it says the sons of Haman also, we learned earlier, they wrote a letter to Koresh saying that the Jews are planning to make a revolt. And then Koresh, and they're going to kill your economy. And we said the other story is that he walked through the market in the city of Shushan, and he saw it was empty. He says, why aren't people buying and selling? What's with the economy of my city? He said, oh, all the Jews went to Israel to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. He says, okay, stop it. Right? He said, no Jews, whoever has not crossed the river cannot go to Eretz Yisrael. And he stopped the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Then, a year later, he died. Then we came to Achashverosh. He was a king for 16 years. And during his reign, there was the story of Purim, Mordechai and Esther, and then he died, or as the Persian sources say, he was assassinated by his son. And his son became the emperor. His son became the emperor, and he allowed the Jews in the second year to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. And the leader of the Jewish people then, his name was Nehemiah. Later on, after the Beis HaMikdash was finished being built, he was joined by his colleague Ezra. And Nehemiah rebuilt the wall of the Holy Temple of Yerushalayim. He got permission from Darius II. Some say he was Jewish and was actually the son of Esther. Perhaps yes, perhaps not. We don't know for sure. Or at least I don't know for sure. And he started rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash and the walls of Yerushalayim. Now, let me bring it up on the screen here. Let's go back to we'll skim through the chapter in Nehemiah Perek Daled. It says when Sanballat and Tuvia and the Arabs, our good old friends, right? And from Ammon and Ashdod, which is Plishtim, Palestine, Philistines, right? And they heard that they're starting to repair the walls of Yerushalayim, and they became very angry. And they knew now it's not going to help to send letters accusing the Jews of revolt. It's not going to help to send it off to King Darius. So if it doesn't work, if they can't win the Jews in the political arena, right, in a diplomatic way, so let's go make a war. And they conspired to go and make a war against Yerushalayim. So Nehemiah says, we davened to Hashem, and we made watches, day and night, 24 hours around the clock. And all the Jews who were building the walls of the city of Jerusalem, around the clock, half of them were building, half of them were watching. And they built day and night, and they guarded day and night, because by night they might come and sabotage all the walls right? And it happened when our enemies heard. And nothing came of that. And Hashem repaired him, and he says, don't be scared, etc. It says, those who built the wall loaded themselves. Everyone had one hand, b'malach, on the work, and the other hand, they held a weapon. They're protecting themselves against their enemies. Everybody, they had their swords tied to them, girded on their sides. And they had trumpets to sound the alarm if an enemy comes to attack. I said to the nobles and the rulers, the work is great. We are separated on the wall. The wall is very long. All these tabs that are open today, because I brought up pictures of the wall of Nehemiah. And if you hear an alarm, if you hear the shofar blow, everybody come. And we worked the entire day from morning until the stars came out by night. Right? So we were doing the work. Half of them were holding spears from rising in the morning until the stars appeared. And that's how they worked let everyone in a servant lodge within Yerushalayim, night may be a guard, and may labor be during the day. So they worked constantly by night and by day, and they guarded constantly by night and by day, but they worked on the wall, it says specifically by day. Let me see all these things I brought up over here. Here is some seals from the times of Nehemiah, the city of Jerusalem. We don't have to watch that video. This is part of the walls.
Capital city. Hezekiah, Judah, begins preparations for war, protecting Gihon Spring, Jerusalem's primary water source, as well as building a massive wall surrounding the entire city, including the western hill and the city's newest inhabitants.
Single speed.
When Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come intent on making war against Jerusalem, he consulted with his officers and warriors about stopping the flow of the springs outside the city, and they supported him. Rebuilding the whole breached wall, raising towers on it, and building another wall outside of it. This massive wall, known in the Bible as the Broad Wall, measured some 22 feet wide, 25 feet high, and 2.5 miles in length.
It's going double speed right now. That's the speed I did it when I.
But you become older, you're slowed down.
Okay, yeah, but this is not meant to be like this.
Hezekiah himself. This wall being a portion of the massive wall built by King Hezekiah to protect Jerusalem from the impending Assyrian.
Okay,
the Great Wall of Jerusalem. Because.
Okay, let's see if we could get this down to single speed.
You can. Normal. Back to normal.
Hezekiah, king of Judah, begins preparations for war, protecting the Gihon Spring, Jerusalem's primary water source, as well as building a massive wall surrounding the entire city, including the western hill and the city's newest inhabitants. The Bible recounts in 2 Chronicles, when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come to war against Jerusalem, he consulted with his officers and warriors about stopping the flow of the springs outside the city, and they supported him. He acted with vigor, rebuilding the whole breached wall, raising towers on it, and building another wall outside of it. This massive wall, known in the Bible as the Broad Wall, measured some 22 feet wide, 25 feet high, and 2.5 miles in length. A portion of this wall, which you can see right beside me, was discovered in the 1970s by Israeli archaeologist Nachman Avigad, dated to the reign of the biblical King Hezekiah himself. This wall being a portion of the massive wall built by King Hezekiah to protect Jerusalem from the impending Assyrian invasion.
Okay.
The Great Wall of Jerusalem. Because when you're in the place where the Bible happens, the word.
Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of the aren't easily findable. Okay. Okay. So that the wall we actually saw was a wall of Chizkiyahu, but parts of that wall were destroyed by the Babylonians and were rebuilt by Nehemiah. So I'm going to show you some parts of that wall. Here is a general drawing of the wall of Nehemiah. And maybe we can zoom out of this, you can see it more. But you see, it goes along the hill. This is the drawing of the wall of Nehemiah. Here is ramparts. These are original Nehemiah parts. I'm going to show you this piece over here. This part is Chizkiyahu. This part is Nehemiah. That part is built during the second Beis HaMikdash. Meaning Chizkiyahu built a big wall. It was destroyed. Nehemiah built on top of that wall. So this area, this middle part is from Nehemiah. The wall we're learning about right now in the Gemara, and that wall, then part of it was fell apart. They're very poor, but there are other Nehemiah parts. This is part of right. It protected the Gihon Springs, but the Gihon Spring runs through the Beis HaMikdash. You can walk along the Gihon Spring from the Beis HaMikdash. It's on the Temple Mount. It just goes further down, and you can take a tour there today. You can walk through the Gihon Spring right now, through a tunnel dug during the times either I think of Chizkiah or the second Beis HaMikdash, or part and part. So this is part of Nehemiah's wall. It's a rampart on the part of Nehemiah's wall. There's one picture I wanted to show. Was it this one? Or, okay, let's go back a little bit. This one over here. There's a part over here, here, and here. Once again, this middle part is part of Nehemiah's wall, the one that we're talking about right now. When you go to the city of David, they show you a retaining wall built back then. Nowadays, they built just cement to strengthen. But from times of Nehemiah, there's a retaining wall This is another part of Nehemiah's wall. So there's bits and pockets of the walls left. Interesting, these are different walls, part of the Kosel. You see different stones, the left and the right. These are built by the Chashmonaim, these are built by Hordas, different parts. There's one is actually a very interesting part. This is right under Nehemiah's wall, which is on top of it. This is built by the Yevusim. You remember David HaMelech bought from the Yevusim, he bought the area. So the person he bought it from, Arab Yevusi, wasn't actually Yevusi. He was called Yevusi because the original inhabitants were Yevusim. But the Yevusim lived in the city of Yerushalayim, Yoav, he conquered them. And this is a tunnel, it has a lock on it today, but it's a tunnel underground where you can go see the original Yevusi wall, the wall from the times of the Yevusim. So the whole Yerushalayim is sort of built one on top of the other, layers upon layers. We're talking about the wall of Nehemiah. Okay. Let's go back here. All right. It's 11:55. So I just want to make a PSA that tomorrow I will not be here, will not be a share, unfortunately. And the next day, I'm going to be traveling to a place where, as cold as it is here, it's much, much colder there, to Montreal. I speak French. What?
40 degrees there.
40 degrees in Montreal tomorrow? Okay, not that bad.
34 in Moscow.
34 in Moscow. Rabbi Darren will be in Moscow for this week, and I'll be in Montreal. We're going to cold places.
I have relatives in Montreal that pointed out.
Montreal, and Eli Walensky walks in. So yeah, tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'll be going tomorrow to Montreal and one of my wife's nephew's weddings, and coming back the afternoon of Wednesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday we won't be here, but Mr. Shem Thursday I'll be back. And today's also very apropos going to a wedding. Today is the day of the Rebbe's wedding and the Rebbetzins' wedding. And it's not just a nice day on the Chabad calendar. More than that, the Rebbe said, this is a day which connected me to you, you to I. It's a day that the Rebbe became connected to us, from being a regular chassid to becoming son-in-law of the Rebbe. And from the very beginning, the Frierdiker Rebbe already entrusted him with many things. And a very unique thing happened on that day. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes what happened to him when he became bar mitzvah. When he was 8 years old, his father, the Rebbe Rashab, called him in, and he put a gartel on him, and he told him the words "Chagra ba'oz masneha." He girds his loins with strength. The idea of a gartel. Told him a mimer, and he says, "When I was 8 years old, my father, the Rebbe Marash, called me in, put a gartel around me, told me a mimer, and the word Chagra ba'oz masneha." And this chain went on, either by the bar mitzvah or when they turned 8 years old, all the way back to the Alter Rebbe. And they only did it to the child who will succeed them as Rebbe. Alter Rebbe had many sons. He only did it to Mittler Rebbe when he turned 8. Mittler Rebbe had sons, but he didn't do it to his son. He did it to the Tzemach Tzedek, his son-in-law. And so on and so forth. And Tzemach Tzedek had 7 sons, and it's only his youngest son, Rebbe Marash, that he did it. It was a way of giving over the Nesius. You're going to be the one to become the next Nasi, the next leader, and the next Neshama Koli is the leader of the Jewish people next.
And it's gave the gartel, you said, right?
He put a gartel on him, told him a mimer, the words Chagra ba'oz masneha, and there's a description. And by the Rebbe's chasana, the Frierdiker Rebbe also put a gartel on the Rebbe on the day of his wedding, and he says, idea with a gartel, you connect yourself, you tie yourself to atik, the atzmus achida, you're kshira, you're tied, you're connected as one. So also in a sense of being a Rebbe, the day of Idal Kislev is very connected to us. So, and for sure it's a day of simcha, a day of joy for the Rebbe, it's a day of joy for us. If who, as a Chassidim being connected to a Rebbe, it's definitely a day of simcha, a day of joy. In the last 2 minutes, I'll say a quick anecdote. There's a shliach in California. His name is Rabbi Chaim Mintz. Very lively, jumpy guy, Rabbi Mintz. One time, there was a family that he knew, very peripherally, a Jewish family. He lives in the city of Bel Air. Heard of Bel Air, California?
Yeah.
A Jewish family he knew a little bit, and he found out that the son in the family
Mhm.
wanted to marry to someone, unfortunately, who is not Jewish, a non-Jew.
And was this a from family? And all of a
No,
sudden
not at all from.
Oh, I see.
And he went to the family to see what he could do. I don't want to come over and visit. Maybe drop something off. And he speaks with the father and the son. And the father, he was not happy about it, but he wasn't devastated about it, that his son wants to marry out. And he's trying to explain to him what happens if you marry out, you're stopping a chain for the generations, and your children will be Jewish, etc. And he mentioned the Rebbe. He saw he wasn't getting through. He wasn't getting through at all. And he mentioned the Rebbe. Sorry. And he didn't meet the father. He met the couple, the young couple. He met the husband to be and the wife to be. That's who he met. Yeah, met the husband, the wife to be. And he wasn't getting through to them. And he mentioned the Rebbe. He says, "Oh, I went to the Rebbe. You're talking about the Rebbe Schneerson. I met him once." So really, you went to the Rebbe? He says, "Yeah." And he even gave me something. He gave me a book. Really? You got a book the Rebbe gave out, I think 10 times the Rebbe gave out was called a kuntris, a pamphlet. One of the times the Rebbe gave out a pamphlet of Chassidus, was called Kuntris Drushe Chasana. It was on Yudal Kislev, his wedding anniversary, in the year Hatzvi-Bais, 1991. And I happen to have one as well, called Kuntris Drushe Chasana. My Marim at the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Drushe, it's a pink cover, I think. Kuntris Drushe Chasana. Yeah, here it is, a blue cover. Right? The Rebbe gave this out. I see somebody wants to sell it online. Right, here's a picture. That's a Chav B'Shvat. Is a video of the Rebbe giving it out. The kuntris of Mamarim about a wedding. During those years, the Rebbe started explaining the spiritual meaning of what his wedding was, and what was the specialty of it, and how it wasn't just a personal wedding, but it's a very general thing. And on this day, the Rebbe gave out a kuntris, a pamphlet of Mamarim, called Drush Chasan Mamarim of the wedding, which the Frierdiker Rebbe said by the time of the Rebbe's wedding, and several other Mamarim about chasanas, about weddings. I said the Maimer of my wedding, by my wedding, from this kuntris of the Rebbe. So he says, "Yeah, I got a book from the Rebbe," and he goes, says, "Do you have it?" He says, "Yeah." He goes out and he brings it back, and he brings a kuntris Drush Chasana. He brings a pamphlet of Mamarim from the wedding. He was blown. He thought he's speaking with somebody who's no connection. He has a kuntris. He says, "Do you know what this book you got from the Rebbe was? This is a book to prepare you for a Jewish wedding and a Jewish marriage. That's what the Rebbe gave this to you for, to prepare you for a Jewish marriage." As he said those words, there was like a wall went up between him and his fiancée. And he started throwing in some Jewish expressions. And a few minutes later, she said, "You know what? I have to go. We'll be in touch." Later on that night, he called up Rabbi Mintz. He says, "Today she broke up with me. I thought we were in love, but she broke up with me." He says, "You know why? Because the Rebbe gave you this kuntris to Shechasna, the Mamarim for the wedding." And they sat down and learned it together. And I don't know the continuation of the story, but they learned the Mamarim together. So.
Who started to say Yiddish expressions to the young man?
No, the Rabbi Mintz to the young man.
Yeah.
And saying is that the Rebbe's wedding has a tremendous koach, a tremendous power, even many years later, and it's very special and it's a very happy day. So thank you for joining all, and